thinking of making a cross-border trip to the United States? President Donald Trump is focused on border security. People are living their political lives on social media. And then there's the recent case of a Canadian detained for 11 days after applying for a work permit.
I was placed into a holding cell, which was this tiny freezing cold cell with an open toilet. There was about 5 other girls in there, and they handed me this mat with this aluminum foil, and she said, "Here's your blanket."
So has it become riskier for Canadians to travel into the United States? Vancouver immigration lawyer Cindy Switzer says she's not getting more cases where people are in a jam, but she is getting more calls from concerned clients.
It's definitely new that people are concerned about traveling through the border and consequences.
Switzer says if you're a Canadian citizen without a criminal conviction or any other reason for inadmissibility, like an infectious health issue, you should be allowed to enter the United States as a visitor for up to 6 months. If you're a Canadian with citizenship from, say, a Latin American or Middle Eastern country, she says your Canadian passport should do the work. But even something like your place of birth could lead to being held longer at the border and more questions. What if you're entering on a work permit in the United States or applying for one? That appears to have been the case for Jasmine Mooney when she was detained.
Generally speaking, if you have your paperwork in order, it should be fine. But, it's hard to say in this environment.
Megan McDermott with the BC Civil Liberties Association says, like elsewhere in society, discrimination can be at play at the border. She says she's concerned certain groups will face extra scrutiny, questions, risks. People with Muslim-sounding names, those associated with political protest or having opinions that are out of sync with the U.S. administration. Trans people, migrants, temporary workers, foreign students.
For these more vulnerable groups, if they're set on going into the United States or it's unavoidable travel for them, they should just be very mindful about these risks.
So what can you do to protect yourself at the border? It's important to know that border officials have the right to search and seize electronic devices. McDermott says that simply locking your device, putting it in airplane mode, and turning off facial recognition may not be enough. Officials have software to clone and access locked phones.
The absolute best way to protect yourself is to not bring any electronic devices or to bring burner ones that don't have any types of this information on it.
McDermott says for politically active people who may get extra scrutiny, for example, those posting in favor of Palestinians on social media, it's worth making any searchable social media accounts private before your trip. Switzer says while the possibility exists for a thorough device search, extra questioning, and delays or even detention at the border, most people won't experience that. And she says you should be able to simply withdraw your application for admission if you don't like the questioning, and just turn around. To put it plainly though, the vibes at the border have changed.
I wouldn't say that the officers necessarily have this new mindset where they're trying to go after everybody, but there's no question that there's directives from the executive branch to, make sure that the borders are strong.
So, if you're planning a trip across the border into the U.S. anytime soon, make sure you know the powers border officials have and the risks that exist. Rafferty Baker, CBC News, Vancouver.